I'd like to start off with a little moment of reflection. I'd like you all to take just a moment to think of your favorite character in a book, a movie, or in some other story. Go ahead and just take a second to recall that character to mind.
So, does everybody have somebody in mind, a character from a book, a movie, a story? Did it take very long to pull them to mind? I'm wondering if anybody is willing to be a brave soul and share who their favorite character is. Can I have someone? Let's see.
My first thought was Thor, but more seriously, Seraphina Pecula, who's a witch that's several hundred years old in the Golden Compass.
So, what do you like about those characters? What is it that makes them your favorite?
I think she has lived many lives through the people she's known, because humans have such a short lifespan compared to her, and I feel like the different chapters in my life resemble her much longer lifespan.
Do you have somebody else who's brave? All right.
My favorite character is Nancy, Psychiatry, 5 cents.
Okay. Can you tell me what makes Nancy your favorite?
She's all common sense. She doesn't put up with much from Peanuts and Linus.
Great. So she's got some qualities that you admire. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do I have time for one more? Would somebody else like to share their character?
I don't know why this popped into my head, but Pippi Longstocking.
And what do you like about Pippi Longstocking? Why is she your favorite?
She doesn't seem to know what the rules are.
Okay. I guess that's worth admiring, yeah. So it seems to me that there is something that we appreciate in other human beings about their being human in the midst of all of their humanness. It sounds like the characters that were named had either some admirable qualities, or we could relate to the character, or maybe we're just amused by their antics because they would do things that we would never do. But there's something about seeing characters in stories face challenges in all of their humanity that helps us to understand our own humanity. There's something about using characters and stories to convey truths about being human that makes these truths easier to understand. And sometimes we call these stories myths. Now, as we explore myths today, I want to acknowledge that this is a term with multiple meanings. Myth sometimes means a common misconception when it refers to something that is widely believed but factually untrue. But this is not the context that I mean when I talk about myth today. Now, not every story is a myth, but myths are always stories. They are metaphors in narrative form. They are poems, fables, and ballads that shape our cultural attitudes. They have characters and a plot. And myths have a function. They exist to tell us something about who we are, where we come from, and insights into our very nature as humans. For example, many myths are moral stories that convey lessons about our role in society and what is culturally appropriate. Now, fables, like we heard earlier with the lion and the mouse, those do that rather explicitly. But the way that characters behave in myths and then how those behaviors are either rewarded or punished in the story serves to reinforce cultural norms of acceptability. Origin stories are another popular form that myths can take. Some origin myths attempt to explain how everything, including humanity, came about. For example, the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible that starts in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Other origin stories are more specific, accounting only for the beginnings of a particular people, not all of creation. In the Near East epic of Gilgamesh, the story begins in an already established world with already established humans. And in fact, with various Sumerian poems, they address the creation of humans, sheep, grain, but there is no myth from the Sumerian civilization that's been discovered that tells the story of the initial creation. So we don't know how that got here, but we do know about the people and the grain and the sheep. I found especially interesting a Babylonian creation story. Marduk, a warrior god, fights and kills Tiamat, the creator of the gods. He then uses Tiamat's deconstructed body to create the stars, the sky, the moon and the sun, as well as the clouds, the mountains, and the earth. Well, that's a nice warm and fuzzy one, isn't it? And as different as they might be in content and style, origin stories have the common effect of shaping our cultural worldview, the lens through which we see and make sense of the world. So, having said a little bit about what myth is, I think it's also worth sharing what myth is not. To quote Joseph Campbell, wherever the poetry of myth is interpreted as biology, history, or science, it is killed. Now, I'll tell you more about Joseph Campbell in a moment, but what he seems to be saying here is that myth is not a historical account. The purpose of myth is not to preserve a detailed and accurate series of events. Myth is not about the scientific method or provable facts. And I think this is where some confusion about myth comes in. To quote Campbell again, he said, "Half the people in the world think that metaphors of their religious tradition are facts. And the other half contends that they are not facts at all. As a result, we have people who consider themselves believers because they accept metaphors as facts, and we have others who classify themselves as atheists because they think religious metaphors are lies." So, if myths are neither facts nor lies, then what are they? Can we understand the truth and wisdom of myth in this space here in between? I think we can if we take myth seriously, but not literally. There is truth and power in metaphors, but only if we learn to get over literalism, past the need to either prove or disprove. Going back to the story of the lion and the mouse, I don't need to believe that a real mouse literally saved a lion in order to know the truth and the wisdom of that story. If I'm arguing with someone over the feasibility of that actually happening, then I have completely missed the point. We would do well to remember, as Campbell puts it, that all religions are true, but none are literal. So Joseph Campbell was a professor of literature who studied myth and religion and came to be one of the foremost experts on the subject of mythology. In his examination of many religions and cultures all across the globe, Campbell identified a pattern that seemed to run through many of the stories and the myths that he encountered. Noticing that the hero of a myth would go through a departure, a transformation, and then a return, he called this sequence the hero's journey, or the hero's path, to describe that story pattern, that pattern of departure, transformation, and return. And he found that that pattern was shared across many, many hundreds of diverse cultures and traditions. So this led Joseph Campbell to write a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces, a title which references a universal quality about myth. While the hero in each of 1,000 cultural myths may have a different name, face, or identity, Campbell believed they were actually all the same hero, united across many cultures by the shared experience of the hero's journey. And to take that idea even farther, Campbell didn't believe that the hero's journey applied only to mythical heroes, but that it actually applied to all of us, each one of us being the hero of our own story. After all, are mythical heroes the only ones who wrestle with questions of meaning and purpose? I doubt it. And this is exactly why myths are so compelling and powerful across cultures, traditions, and religions. It's not that myths claim to have all the answers. We need myths because we need stories that we can identify with and see ourselves in. We need to know that others share our experiences of being human. We need the assurance that whatever challenges we are facing, whatever questions we are wrestling with, we are not the first, we are not the last, and we are not alone. Myth reminds us, too, that we are the hero on the path, like so many who have come before us. And as Campbell put it, we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. When we had thought to travel outwards, we shall come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. May it be so.